Hi everyone, we are Team 25 and today we will be discussing why we believe democracy is not strengthened by the internet. We will be examining this issue from numerous perspectives as well as sharing our research and analysis with you.
The development of IT has created wider gaps for the population without access to the internet to participate and develop informed opinions in political elections. Overall, it has a negative impact on democracy. In May 2011, a UN report mentioned that access to the internet is a fundamental human right. The report echoed the voices of many human rights activists and brings the issue of digital divide into spotlight. According to Pippa Norris from Harvard University, the digital divide is defined as the gap between the rich and the poor with regard to both their opportunities to access information and communication technologies and their use of internet for a wide variety of activities such as political information and participation. A 2014 International Telecommunications Union study illustrates that regions such as Africa and Asia have a participation of only 19 and 32% respectively. This is not acceptable and depicts the issue of digital divide and branches out to the misrepresentation in the democratic process. Nations such as South Africa are an example, as in 2007, only 4.5% of South Africa's population had access to the internet, whereas the other 95.5% did not. With more and more news regarding politics being exclusively available on the internet, the 90.55% are left in the dark and have no physical way to access that data. But narrowing the gap will take a lot of effort, as the high levels of illiteracy pose a problem. Development of IT has further increased the gap of the ability to obtain an informed view on politics. As writer Verloren argues that the major language of the internet is English, and South Africa has 11 other official languages besides English, creating further divide. Another example is Iran, when the government restricted the broadband speeds that internet service providers can provide to 128 kilobytes in 2005. According to an article in The Guardian, the major reason for the restriction was to impede efforts by political opposition groups to organize by uploading the information to the net. This technique allows for authoritarian-style governments to prevent voters from making informed opinions and the potential collapse of a revolution. If the information is progressively moving to advanced platforms of IT but cannot be made accessible, it is increasing the gap of equality in political participation. Even when this access is achieved, there is a steep learning curve in developing nations, and this is just one way IT is negatively impacting democracy.
Misreporting the news happens more often than you might think. Therefore, political bias in media is a very hot topic. In democracy, decisions are made by the people than the rulers. But for the people to make decisions, there must be political influence. The problem of democratic voting is that the biggest group of people always have the most power. So many politicians are known for saying what majority of people wants to hear. Some of the political influence are flawed, could either be misinformation or unpurposely project false ideas. In 1960, broadcasting the presidential debate between Kennedy and Nixon has revolutionized voters' opinion. At that time, 70% of the US citizens owns the television. With information technology, some of the presidential debates may be cut or edited, so viewers can take information out of context. These media manipulations are now becoming an issue. A recent study conducted by Cronkite School of Journalism indicates that 67% of Americans do not trust major media for accurate reporting. As time has changed and technology has been developed, it allows politicians to find an easier way to shape nations' opinion. Example like YouTube is now officially political, where candidates or anyone can upload videos with inaccurate political bias ideas. So the internet has played a big part of democracy. Every month, about 100 million people browse on Fox News Network, and about 200 million people browse on the CNN News Network. But even these major news networks make mistakes. For example, in 2012, CNN and Fox News wrongly reported that Obamacare has been struck down by the Supreme Court. Incidents like this happen quite often due to urgency of reporting news online or through television. Therefore, news is not always properly checked. So a branch of independent project called PolitiFact regularly checks the facts reported by these major news networks. Currently, they have found out that 55% of the facts reported by CNN are true. Only 42% of ABC reporting is true, and merely 34% of the NBC facts are true. Overall, only 33% of the Americans now trust mass media. This is very different compared to the 68% of Americans who trust mass media back in 1972. Gallup.com suggests that one of the chief reasons for this growth of distrust of media and major news outlet is the growth of internet, an increased number of independent news providers. Social media may be the reason why of misinformation that might have inspired people fostering a healthy social attitude, such as race, gender, class. And people might use these misinformation to make very important decisions, such as who to vote for during an election, which will affect the future course of country's well-being.
The Internet has been hailed as a catalyst for change, for democracy, and promoting Western values. This idea, however, is a misconception caused primarily due to the misconception that authoritarian leaders and dictators are afraid of the Internet and for some reason are unable to use it for their own purposes. Governments around the world have used this misconception to implement censorship more effectively and easier than ever. Information that previously would have been spread through different mediums is now congregated into online medium and Internet blogs. Governments can pick and choose what information they allow. Governments can allow small amounts of democracy media to exist to hide the amount of media and information being censored. One of the greatest censorship systems has been implemented in China. China's system of internet control, often deemed the Great Wall of China, blocks 19,381 Google searches, a statistic from greatfire.org. This system allows government to control the flow of information and therefore stay in control of the populace at all times. Bloggers and media outlets spreading information about or supporting democracy can easily be filtered out. China's government have used their internet control system to time and time again respond to any major events that may cause unrest in the population. They have ensured that the online protesters are silenced and information contrary to the image they would like to portray is also filtered. A population that is displeased is more likely to revolt and try to change the country into a democracy. Searching Google images for Tiananmen Square protests of 1989, sometimes called the '89 Democracy Movement, is one of the best examples of the types of censorship occurring to prevent democracy. A search for Tiananmen Square in Google China returns tourist pictures of the square with no mention of the horrible events that occurred in 1989. These search results are very different than the same search results in other countries. A search anywhere else in the world will return famous images of a man carrying groceries in front of a line of tanks, a symbol of defiance against the government of China. This is exactly how IT is used to prevent democracy in certain countries through censorship.
Cross-border interference in national politics becomes easier with the Internet. Why negotiate with an ambassador if one can target a key congressional chairman by an email campaign, chat group interventions, misinformation, and untraceable donations? People should worry more about state-sponsored interferences into other countries' electronic politics. It is increasingly difficult to conduct national politics and policies in a globalized world, where distance and borders are less important than in the past. The difficulty of societies to control their own affairs leads to a backlash and regulatory intervention. True, the Internet is a more active and interactive medium than TV, but just because the quantity of information increases does not mean that its quality rises. As the Internet leads to more information clutter, it will become necessary for any message to get louder. Political information becomes distorted, shrill, and simplistic. The Internet creates electronically linked new types of communities, but these are different from traditional communities. They have less of the averaging that characterizes physical communities. These new communities are more stratified along some common dimension, such as business, politics, or hobbies. These groups will therefore tend to be issue-driven, more narrow-minded, and sometimes more extreme, as like-minded people reinforce each other's views. One of the characteristics of the Internet is this intermediation. The Internet is in business as well as in politics. In politics, it leads to the decline of traditional news media and their screening techniques. The acceleration of the news cycle by necessity leads to less careful checking. while competition leads to more sensationalism. Issues get attention if they are visually arresting and easily understood. This leads to media events, to the 15-minute of fame, to the soundbite, to infotainment. The internet also permits anonymity, which leads to last-minute political ambush. The internet lends itself to dirty politics more than the more accountable TV. While the self-image of the digital citizen persists, an empirical study of the content of several political net groups found much intolerant behavior such as domineering by a few, rude flaming, and reliance on unsupported assertions. Another investigation finds no evidence that computer-mediated communication is necessarily democratic or participatory.
The utopian point of view is that the increased use of the internet will spread and benefit democracy. There is an assumption being made that those who don't participate in politics offline will suddenly participate because of the internet. Despite the ease of access the internet provides, political participation is especially declining amongst young people. The turnout of youths for American elections has fallen from 51% in 1964 to 32% in 2000. In 2005, a study of 2,163 people aged 35 and younger found that 72% of young people are not engaged politically offline. That is a high percentage of non-participants for a group of people that is the most likely to bring about political change and spur democracy. The same study found that online political participation mirrors offline political participation. This means that people who read and watch the news offline will do so online, whereas those who don't will not suddenly start doing it online because they have access to it. The internet amplifies existing interests and behaviors. If you are not a sports fan offline, it is highly unlikely that you will be one online. The type of political participation that did occur online was found to be largely passive. Only 8% of young people were found to be members of political groups, 33% would engage in political discussion, and 51% would participate in campaigns. The vast majority participates in passive political activities such as information gathering and reading newspapers. Bystanders, however, do not bring about the change necessary to spread democracy and strengthen it. It can also be argued that the internet is taking up the time that could be spent on participating in politics. There has indeed been an increase in online use over the past few years. Hours of internet use per week has doubled from 9.9 hours to 20.5 hours in 2014, most of which is during leisure time. Not only is the time spent online restricting the amount of time left for offline political participation, it is also limiting online political participation through entertainment and spam. As can be seen from the infographic, the rise of the internet use in 2014 has also increased gaming. Games, YouTube, and Netflix are large time sinks for young people and distract them from being politically engaged online. Not only are people being distracted from politics by the internet, in some cases it also gives them reason to avoid it altogether. Political spam makes up 2% of all spam. This does not include spam text messages and posts on sites such as Facebook and Pinterest. Spreading a message is different from forcing your ideas on others. The internet may be a great tool for political change and the spread of democracy, but if it is being used poorly, it can't be said to be benefiting democracy. Just because it can help doesn't mean it is doing so.
By now, we hope you agree that democracy is not strengthened by the internet. Thanks for watching our video, and we look forward to hearing your feedback.